The ancient Ithorian water purification system erupts with unexpected force, drenching a group of nearby Ithorian females in a sudden deluge. Billy Hill, a human terraformer on the newly colonized planet Zeros, watches in shock as his routine soil analysis accidentally triggers this massive geyser. The Ithorian women, caught off guard, begin to exhibit an alarming biological response. Their bodies glisten as a viscous fluid seeps through their skin, soaking their clothing and leaving them trembling. Billy, unaware of the impact his presence is having, rushes to assist the affected Ithorians. As he approaches, the females' reactions intensify. Their bodies quiver with increasing urgency, secreting even more of the mysterious fluid. The lead xenobiologist, Cora, struggles to maintain her composure as Billy draws near. Her scientific mind races to understand the physiological changes overtaking her body, but rational thought becomes increasingly difficult as waves of arousal wash over her. The other Ithorian females exhibit similar signs of extreme attraction, their eyes fixed on Billy with unmistakable desire. The situation escalates rapidly as more human male colonists arrive, drawn by the commotion. Each new arrival amplifies the Ithorian females' response, their bodies producing copious amounts of the glistening secretion. The air grows thick with tension as the Ithorian males, led by Chief Ambassador Zorn, witness the scene with mounting anger and confusion. Zorn's voice booms across the clearing, demanding an immediate cessation of all human activity on Zeros. He interprets the situation as a deliberate attack on Ithorian women, his face contorted with rage as he threatens to revoke the colonization agreement. The human colonial governor, Marcus Steele, observes the unfolding crisis with a mix of concern and calculation. Recognizing the potential for this incident to either destroy or significantly advance human-Ithorian relations, Steele springs into action. He pulls Billy aside, instructing him to work closely with Cora to uncover the cause of the Ithorian female's reaction. The governor's hope rests on finding a scientific explanation that could prevent an interspecies conflict. As Billy and Cora begin their investigation, they struggle to maintain professional distance. The pheromones affecting the Ithorian females seem to linger, creating an undercurrent of tension between the two researchers. They discover that the ancient water purification system has infused the water with trace elements of a long-dormant Ithorian pheromone. When combined with human male pheromones, it creates a potent aphrodisiac effect on Ithorian females. This revelation sends shockwaves through both human and Ithorian communities on Zeros. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the colonial medical team, immediately begins studying the phenomenon. She hypothesizes that this biological compatibility could lead to breakthroughs in interspecies reproduction and genetic engineering. However, not everyone shares Dr. Vasquez's enthusiasm. Conservative factions within both societies voice vehement opposition to any further exploration of this biological link. They cite concerns about genetic purity and cultural preservation, adding another layer of complexity to the already tense situation. As word of the incident spreads, human males on Zeros find themselves the objects of intense curiosity and desire from the Ithorian female population. Interspecies romantic encounters surge, further straining relations with Ithorian males. The colonial government scrambles to impose strict regulations on human Ithorian interactions, but underground meetups and secret liaisons begin to flourish. Billy, the inadvertent catalyst of this diplomat's crisis, finds himself torn between his growing attraction to Cora and his duty to maintain peace between humans and Ithorians. As he navigates this personal and political minefield, the future of human-Ithorian relations hangs in the balance, with the potential to reshape the destiny of both species on Zeros and beyond. As the situation on Zeros teetered on the brink of chaos, Billy Hill found himself at the center of a storm he never could have anticipated. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, knowing that his accidental triggering of the ancient water purification system had unleashed a cascade of events that threatened to unravel the delicate fabric of human-Ithorian relations. Determined to find answers, Billy and Cora intensified their research efforts. Their work led them to a startling discovery, an ancient Ithorian archive hidden beneath the planet's surface. As they descended into the subterranean chamber, the air grew thick with the musty scent of millennia-old secrets. "Look at this," Cora breathed, her voice filled with awe as she activated a holographic display. The flickering blue light illuminated their faces, casting eerie shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Before them, images of ancient Ithorians danced and swirled, accompanied by streams of data in an archaic dialect. Billy watched transfixed as Cora's nimble fingers flew over the controls, translating the information. "This is incredible," she murmured. "It appears our females once possessed an evolutionary trait, the ability to produce a potent pheromone-laced secretion in the presence of genetically compatible mates. But it went dormant over millennia of controlled breeding practices." Billy's mind raced with the implications. So when the purification system activated, it must have reawakened this dormant trait, and human males seemed to be triggering it, Cora finished, her eyes meeting his with a mix of scientific curiosity and something deeper, more primal. As they delved deeper into their research, the world above ground continued to roil with tension. Governor Marcus Steele, his face etched with lines of worry, implemented strict segregation policies in a desperate bid to prevent further incidents between human males and Ithorian females. "We must maintain order," Steele announced to his staff, his voice firm but tinged with frustration. "Effective immediately, all non-essential contact between human males and Ithorian females is prohibited." Despite the governor's efforts, the attraction between the two species proved too strong to be contained by mere regulations. Underground meeting spots began to emerge across the colony, hidden in the shadows of abandoned buildings and tucked away in the lush Zerosian forests. Captain Sarah Chen of the Colonial Security Force found herself fighting an uphill battle. Her team worked tirelessly to break up clandestine gatherings, but for every illicit rendezvous they disrupted, two more seemed to spring up in its place. "We can't keep this up forever," Chen reported to Governor Steele, exhaustion evident in her voice. "The more we crack down, the more creative they get in finding ways around our patrols." Meanwhile, on the Ithorian side of the conflict, Chief Ambassador Zorn faced mounting pressure from conservative factions. The embassy echoed with angry voices demanding swift and decisive action. "We cannot allow this human contamination to continue," roared one particularly vocal Ithorian elder, his hammerhead swaying with agitation. "They must be expelled from Zeros immediately." Zorn, caught between his duty to his people and the potential consequences of such a drastic action, made a reluctant decision. "We will form a task force," he announced, his voice heavy with the weight of his choice, "to investigate possible criminal charges against the human Billy Hill for his role in activating the water purification system." The news of this development sent shockwaves through the human colony. Billy, upon hearing of the potential charges against him, felt a cold knot of fear form in his stomach. But even as he grappled with the personal implications, he couldn't ignore the scientific mystery unfolding before him. In the medical wing of the colony, Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team worked feverishly to understand the biological implications of the Ithorian female's reaction. The lab hummed with activity as researchers pored over data and conducted experiments. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Vasquez exclaimed, her eyes alight with excitement as she examined a holographic model of Ithorian DNA. The combination of human pheromones and the reactivated Ithorian trait could lead to groundbreaking advancements in cross-species medical treatments. As word of the situation on Zeros spread to other human colonies, a new complication arose. Opportunistic entrepreneurs began organizing romantic tours to the planet, promising human males the chance to experience the unique Ithorian female reaction firsthand. Governor Steele, already stretched thin managing the crisis, found himself forced to implement strict immigration controls. "We cannot allow Zeros to become a destination for interspecial tourism," he declared, his tone brooking no argument. "The situation is far too volatile." Amidst the swirling chaos, Billy made a decision. Stepping into Dr. Vasquez's lab, he took a deep breath and announced, "I want to volunteer for your experiments. If we can isolate the specific human pheromones triggering the Ithorian response, maybe we can find a way to control it." As Billy underwent a battery of tests, he found himself working closely with Cora. The two researchers spent long hours together, their professional relationship deepening into something more profound. Despite the societal taboos surrounding human Ithorian relationships, they found themselves drawn to each other, their shared quest for knowledge bridging the gap between their species. The relative calm of scientific inquiry was shattered when a group of radical Ithorian males, led by Zorn's nephew Krell, staged a violent protest at the human colony's main research facility. The attack came swiftly and without warning, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Alarms blared as security forces rushed to contain the situation, the air filled with the acrid smell of smoke and the sound of breaking glass. When the dust settled, several humans and Ithorians lay injured, and vital equipment had been reduced to twisted wreckage. The attack marked a turning point in the crisis. Governor Steele, realizing that drastic action was needed to prevent further violence, made a controversial decision. "We will form a joint human Ithorian security task force," he announced, his voice resolute despite the murmurs of dissent from both sides. As the newly formed task force began its patrols, an uneasy calm settled over the colony. But beneath the surface, tensions continued to simmer, threatening to boil over at any moment. The arrival of a high-ranking delegation from Earth, led by the charismatic diplomat Jason Reeves, added yet another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation. In the depths of their research facility, Billy and Cora made a discovery that would once again change everything. As they examined the latest data from their experiments, Cora's eyes widened in shock. "Billy," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and fear. "Look at this, the reactivation of the dormant trait. It's not just a temporary effect. It's triggering a rapid evolutionary change in the affected females." As they stared at the holographic display, watching the simulated progression of genetic changes, the full implications of their discovery began to sink in. The crisis on Zeros was just getting started. In fact, it was evolving into something neither humans nor Ithorians could have ever anticipated. Imagined. As Billy and Cora exchanged worried glances, the lab's intercom crackled to life. "Dr. Hill, Dr. Xylara, report to the main conference room immediately," Governor Steele's voice commanded, tension evident in his tone. Hurrying through the corridors, they arrived to find the conference room abuzz with activity. Governor Steele stood at the head of the table, his face etched with concern. Beside him stood a tall, imposing figure, a human male in his mid-40s with piercing blue eyes and an air of authority. "Dr. Hill, Dr. Xylara, meet Jason Reeves, our newly arrived diplomat from Earth," Steele introduced, his voice tight. As they shook hands, Billy noticed a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The Ithorian females present, including Cora, seemed to stiffen, their eyes dilating as they focused on Reeves. "Pleasure to meet you both," Reeves said smoothly, his charisma palpable. "I've heard a great deal about your work here." Before anyone could respond, a commotion erupted at the far end of the room. Two Ithorian female officials who had been quietly conversing suddenly stumbled, their normally composed demeanor crumbling as they emitted low guttural sounds. "What's happening?" Reeves asked, alarm creeping into his voice. Billy's mind raced, connecting the dots. "It's you," he said, turning to Reeves. "Your pheromones, they're more potent than anything we've seen before." Governor Steele sprang into action, ordering the room cleared of all Ithorian females. As security personnel ushered them out, Billy caught sight of Cora's face, a mix of confusion and primal hunger in her eyes. In the aftermath of the incident, Steele convened an emergency meeting with his advisors, including Billy, Dr. Vasquez, and Reeves. "This situation is spiraling out of control," Steele said, pacing the room. "We need solutions, and we need them now." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her eyes bright with an idea. "What if we created designated areas for controlled human-Ithorian interaction? With proper air filtration and pheromone regulation, we could provide a safe space for both species to mingle." Steele nodded slowly, considering the proposal. "It's risky, but it might be our best option for now. Make it happen, Doctor." Within days, the first interspecies interaction zones were established across the colony. Billy watched from an observation deck as humans and Ithorians tentatively entered the specially designed facilities. "It's remarkable," Cora said, joining him at the window. She had undergone a series of treatments to dampen her reaction to human pheromones, allowing her to work closely with Billy once more. Look at them. They're actually communicating, learning from each other. But not everyone shared their optimism. As they left the observation deck, they encountered a group of protesters, a mix of human and Ithorian conservatives, decrying the interaction zones as dens of immorality. "This is an abomination," an elderly Ithorian male shouted, his hammerhead swaying in agitation. "We must preserve the purity of our species." As tensions rose, Billy and Cora retreated to their lab, diving back into their research. Days blurred into nights as they pored over data, searching for answers. "Billy, look at this," Cora called out one evening, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She pointed to a series of holographic displays showing Ithorian female physiology. Billy leaned in, his eyes widening as he absorbed the information. Increased muscle density, enhanced sensory acuity, accelerated cellular regeneration. "Cora, these changes are significant. And they're consistent across all subjects with prolonged exposure to human male pheromones," she added, her voice hushed. As they grappled with the implications of their discovery, an alarm blared through the colony. The Joint Human-Ithorian Security Task Force sprang into action, racing to the water treatment facility. Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "We've got a situation here. A group of radical Ithorian males is attempting to sabotage the purification system." Billy and Cora watched from the lab's security feeds as the task force engaged the saboteurs. The battle was intense but brief, with the well-trained joint force quickly overwhelming the attackers. In the wake of the attack, Dr. Vasquez called an urgent meeting. "We've made a breakthrough," she announced, her face flushed with excitement. "A prototype pheromone suppressor. It could regulate the Ithorian female response to human males." The news sparked a flurry of activity, with volunteers lining up for trials. However, initial results were mixed. Some subjects reported success, while others experienced severe withdrawal symptoms when the suppressor wore off. As word of the situation on Zero spread, the planet became a media sensation. News feeds buzzed with sensationalized stories of interspecies romance and evolutionary marvels. The colonial authorities found themselves overwhelmed by a surge of unauthorized human male tourists, forcing the implementation of strict quarantine procedures. Amidst the chaos, a delegation of senior Ithorian female scientists arrived, determined to conduct their own investigation. Their presence added another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation. Billy, feeling the weight of responsibility for his role in triggering the crisis, made a fateful decision. He approached Dr. Vasquez with a proposal. "I want to volunteer for an experimental procedure," he said, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, "to amplify my pheromone output to match Reeves's levels. We need to understand the full extent of the Ithorian female response." Dr. Vasquez hesitated, concern evident in her eyes. "The risks are significant, Billy. The strain on your body could be severe." "I understand," Billy replied, his tenacity unwavering. "But we need answers, and this might be our best chance to get them." As preparations for the procedure began, Cora found herself torn between her scientific curiosity and her growing feelings for Billy. She watched with a mix of admiration and fear as he was wheeled into the lab, ready to once again put himself at the center of this interstellar crisis. Little did they know that deep in the ancient Ithorian archives, a discovery was about to be made that would change everything, a reference to a long-lost Ithorian colony where a similar phenomenon had occurred millennia ago. As Billy's experimental procedure began, the stage was set for a new chapter in the unfolding drama on Zeros, one that would take them beyond the stars in search of answers. Answers and a path beyond the stars. As the anesthesia took hold, Billy's last conscious thought was of Cora's worried face, her alien features etched with concern. Days later, as Billy recovered from the experimental procedure, the colony buzzed with excitement over a startling discovery. Dr. Vasquez burst into the recovery room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Billy, Cora, you need to see this," she said, breathless. "We've found something in the ancient Ithorian archives, a reference to a long-lost colony where a similar phenomenon occurred millennia ago." Governor Steele wasted no time in calling an emergency meeting. The conference room was packed with human and Ithorian officials, scientists, and security personnel. Jason Reeves stood at the governor's side, his presence still causing subtle ripples of tension among the Ithorian females present. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steele began, his voice grave, "the situation on Zeros has taken an unexpected turn. We've uncovered evidence of a distant planet called Zephyria, where our ancestors may have encountered a similar interspecies situation." Murmurs filled the room as Steele continued, "I'm authorizing an immediate expedition to investigate this planet. Dr. Hill, Dr. Zylara, Dr. Vasquez, I want you three leading the scientific team." Billy, still pale from his procedure, nodded firmly. Cora's hand found his under the table, a gesture of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by the others present. "I'll be joining the expedition as well," Reeves announced, his tone brooking no argument. "My diplomatic experience will be crucial in case of any unexpected encounters." Within days, the research vessel Horizon was prepped for launch. As Billy boarded, he couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. The ship's tight quarters made it impossible to ignore the tension between humans and Ithorians. Despite strict segregation protocols, the air seemed charged with an electric mix of pheromones and anticipation. As the Horizon broke free of Zeros' gravity well, Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands, prepare for FTL jump. Destination, Zephyria." The journey was marked by a series of minor incidents: furtive glances in the mess hall, accidental encounters in the corridors. Security Chief Talon, an imposing Ithorian male, had his hands full maintaining order. "This is getting out of hand," he growled during a senior staff meeting. "We've had 3 cases of unauthorized fraternization in the past week alone." Dr. Vasquez nodded grimly. "The close quarters are amplifying the pheromone effects. We need to reach Zephyria soon, or we might have a full-blown crisis on our hands." After weeks of tense travel, the Horizon finally entered Zephyrria's orbit. The planet's surface was a patchwork of green and blue, eerily similar to Earth. As the ship descended, Billy and Cora stood side by side in the observation deck, watching the alien landscape grow larger. "Look there," Cora said, pointing to a cluster of geometric shapes nestled in a valley. "Those have to be artificial structures." The expedition set up base camp near the ruins, a flurry of activity as equipment was unloaded and security perimeters established. Billy led a team into the heart of the ancient Ithorian settlement, his heart pounding with each new discovery. "Over here!" called one of the junior researchers, her voice echoing through the crumbling structures. "I think we've found something." Billy and Cora rushed over, finding themselves face to face with a sealed chamber, its surface covered in intricate Ithorian script. With trembling hands, they activated the opening mechanism. As the door slid open with a hiss of escaping air, the team was hit by a wave of stale, ancient atmosphere. Inside, bathed in the glow of their flashlights, lay a treasure trove of artifacts and data crystals, perfectly preserved for millennia. "This is incredible," Cora breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. "With this data, we might finally understand what happened here." As they began to catalog the finds, Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled over their comms. "Hill, Zylara, you need to see this. We've made a breakthrough with the artifacts." Rushing back to the main lab, they found Vasquez hunched over a holographic display, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "Look at this genetic data," she said, pointing to a complex double helix rotating slowly in the air. "It shows clear signs of evolutionary changes in the ancient Ithorians, triggered by exposure to something else, something not Ithorian and not human." The implications hung heavy in the air. Whatever had happened on Zephyria millennia ago, it wasn't just a simple case of human-Ithorian interaction. There was a third player in this ancient drama. As the team delved deeper into the ruins, tension continued to mount. Billy couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the ancient structures held secrets yet to be revealed. And through it all, Jason Reeves moved with a purpose that seemed at odds with his stated diplomatic mission, his eyes constantly scanning for something only he seemed to understand. The expedition's first major crisis struck without warning. A team of researchers pushing deeper into the ruins accidentally triggered an ancient security system. The air filled with a glittering cloud of nanobots, swarming around the panicked scientists. "Everybody out!" Billy shouted, helping to evacuate the affected area. But it was too late. The nanobots had already begun to interact with both human and Ithorian biology, amplifying the already potent pheromone effects to unprecedented levels. As chaos erupted in the camp, with humans and Ithorians alike struggling to control their suddenly heightened urges, Billy and Cora found themselves drawn to a hidden chamber deep within the ruins. Inside, they made a discovery that would change everything. A row of stasis pods, each containing a perfectly preserved specimen of an unknown alien species. The aliens bore an uncanny resemblance to humans, but with subtle, unmistakable differences. As Billy and Cora stared in awe at the sleeping figures, a cold realization dawned. These must be the Zephyrians, the missing piece in the puzzle of Ithorian evolution. Before they could fully process their discovery, alarms blared throughout the camp. Security Chief Talon's voice roared over the comms. "Intruder alert! All personnel to battle stations!" Racing back to the surface, Billy and Cora emerged to find the camp in turmoil. In the center of the chaos stood Jason Reeves, a vial of glowing genetic material clutched in his hand, surrounded by a team of armed mercenaries who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. "I'm sorry it had to come to this," Reeves said, his charismatic smile now twisted into a sneer. "But the organization I represent can't allow this discovery to fall into just anyone's hands." As Billy tensed, ready to confront the traitorous diplomat, a sound from behind stopped him cold. Turning, he saw one of the stasis pods beginning to open, its ancient mechanisms groaning to life. The Zephyrian was waking up. In that moment, with chaos erupting around them and an ancient alien stirring to life, Billy realized that everything they thought they knew about human-Ithorian relations was about to change. The true nature of their shared past, and perhaps their future, lay in the hands of this new, unknown player. As the stasis pod's lid began to rise, Billy, Cora, and the entire expedition held their breath, knowing that the next few moments could reshape the course of galactic history. History. The air in the chamber crackled with tension as the ancient mechanism groaned to life. Suddenly, a hiss of escaping air filled the room as the stasis pod's lid slowly rose. Billy and Cora instinctively stepped back, their hearts racing. From within the pod, a figure began to stir. As the mist cleared, they saw her, a female Zephyrian, her features a striking blend of human and Ithorian characteristics. Her skin was a pale lavender, with subtle iridescent patterns that shifted in the light. Her eyes, large and alert, scanned the room before settling on Billy. "Incredible," Dr. Vasquez whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her caution. "She's perfectly preserved." The Zephyrian sat up, her movements fluid and graceful. As she did, a wave of something intangible yet potent swept through the room. Billy felt it first, a rush of warmth that spread through his body, followed by a sudden sharpening of his senses. Colors seemed brighter, sounds clearer, and every nerve ending tingled with heightened awareness. Cora gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She turned to Billy, her eyes wide with a mix of confusion and intensified attraction. Dr. Vasquez, observing the reactions, quickly put the pieces together. "Pheromones," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "She's releasing pheromones that are affecting both human males and Ithorian females. We need to establish a quarantine zone immediately." As the scientific team scrambled to set up containment protocols, Billy found himself drawn towards the Zephyrian. She met his gaze, her eyes filled with an ancient intelligence. "Lyra," she said, touching her chest. Her voice was melodic, with an accent unlike anything Billy had ever heard. "I'm Billy," he responded, surprised at the strength and confidence in his own voice. He felt invigorated, as if every cell in his body was charged with energy. Cora watched the interaction, a complex mix of emotions swirling within her. Her attraction to Billy, already strong, now felt overwhelming. Yet she also felt a pull towards Lyra, a sense of connection she couldn't explain. Outside the chamber, chaos erupted as news of Lyra's awakening spread. Jason Reeves, momentarily forgotten in the excitement, seized his opportunity. He burst into the room, flanked by his mercenaries. "Step away from the alien," Reeves commanded, his voice hard. "She's coming with us." Billy moved instinctively to protect Lyra, his body responding with unexpected speed and strength. Cora stepped up beside him, her own protective instincts flaring. "You have no authority here, Reeves," Billy growled, his voice carrying a new edge of power. Reeves sneered, raising a strange device. "I have all the authority I need. Now move, or—" His words were cut short as Lyra stood, her presence filling the room. She raised her hand, and a wave of empathic energy washed over everyone present. Reeves staggered, his eyes widening as vivid images flooded his mind. Glimpses of Earth's distant past, of Zephyrians walking among early humans and Ithorians. Taking advantage of Reeves's disorientation, Billy launched himself forward, disarming the stunned diplomat with ease. Cora quickly moved to secure the mercenaries, her movements swift and precise. As the immediate threat subsided, Dr. Vasquez's voice came over the comms, thick with concern. "We have a situation. The nanobots released earlier are interacting with Lyra's pheromones. They're spreading beyond our containment measures." Reports began flooding in from around the camp and the orbiting horizon. Human males reported sudden increases in strength and cognitive abilities, while Ithorian females described heightened empathic sensations and accelerated healing. Amidst the growing chaos, Lyra began to communicate, using a combination of simple words, gestures, and empathic projections. Images flashed through the minds of those present, Zephyrians traveling the stars, seeding compatible life forms across the galaxy. "We connect," Lyra said, her words halting but clear. "Humans, Ithorians, Zephyrians, one origin." The implications of her words sent shockwaves through the expedition team. Dr. Vasquez, her mind racing with the scientific possibilities, ordered a full genetic analysis of Lyra's DNA. As the hours passed, the situation on Zephyria grew increasingly complex. A group of human males and Ithorian females, their attractions amplified by Lyra's pheromones, broke away from the main camp. Led by geologist Marcus Chen and Ithorian botanist Thela, they established a separate colony, embracing the changes brought by Zephyrian influence. Back in the main camp, Dr. Vasquez made a startling discovery. Lyra's DNA contains sequences that can be activated in both humans and Ithorians, she announced, her voice a mix of awe and trepidation. "It could unlock dormant abilities in both our species." As the team grappled with the ethical implications of this discovery, a violent tremor shook the ground. Equipment toppled, and ominous creaks echoed through the ancient ruins. "Earthquake!" someone shouted. "We need to evacuate!" Billy grabbed Lyra's hand, guiding her towards the exit. Cora followed close behind, helping Dr. Vasquez secure crucial data samples. As they ran, dodging falling debris, the weight of their discoveries pressed heavily upon them. The ground continued to shake as they emerged into the open air. In the distance, they could see the lights of an approaching ship, the military task force sent by Governor Steele. As the earth trembled beneath their feet and the sky filled with the roar of incoming ships, Billy, Cora, and Lyra stood together, facing an uncertain future. The fate of 3 species now hung in the balance, with the secrets of Zephyria holding the key to a new chapter in galactic history. The Earth's violent tremors subsided, leaving an eerie stillness in their wake. Billy, Cora, and Lyra stood together, their eyes fixed on the approaching military ships. Suddenly, a new crisis erupted. A low rumble emanated from the ancient ruins, followed by a hissing sound. Clouds of iridescent spores burst forth from cracks in the structures, billowing into the air and quickly engulfing the expedition site. "Everyone, cover your faces!" Dr. Vasquez shouted, but her warning came too late. The spores, infused with Lyra's potent pheromones, saturated the atmosphere. Billy felt an immediate change. His muscles tensed and bulged, straining against his uniform. His senses sharpened to an almost painful degree. He could hear the rapid heartbeats of those around him, smell the fear and excitement mingling in the air. Beside him, Cora gasped. Intricate, shimmering patterns appeared on her skin, pulsing in a rhythm with her quickened breath. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of wonder and alarm, locked onto Billy's. It's affecting everyone, she whispered, her voice thick with new undertones that sent shivers down Billy's spine. Dr. Vasquez, ever the scientist, pulled out a handheld scanner. The spores are accelerating the changes we observed earlier. We need to salvage our equipment and data before... Her words were cut short as another tremor shook the ground. The weakened ruins began to collapse around them. "Move! Now!" Billy commanded, his voice carrying a new authority that compelled immediate action. As they raced to secure their research, Lyra suddenly froze. Her eyes glazed over, and she swayed on her feet. Billy caught her before she fell, feeling a jolt of electricity where their skin touched. "Lyra, what's happening?" he asked urgently. Instead of answering, Lyra's mind reached out. Images flooded Billy's consciousness, ancient Zephyrians traversing the stars, their encounters with primitive humans and Ithorians, a grand plan of galactic unity. "She's broadcasting," Cora exclaimed, her own pupils dilating from the telepathic onslaught. "Everyone's receiving it." Amidst the chaos, Jason Reeves made his move. Taking advantage of the confusion, he sprinted towards the communication array. "I need to inform my superiors," he muttered, his eyes wild and unfocused. Billy, his reflexes enhanced by the spores, intercepted Reeves before he could reach the equipment. "Stand down, Jason," he warned. Reeves lunged forward, his own strength amplified by earlier exposure to Lyra's influence. The two men grappled, their augmented muscles straining against each other. In the struggle, they careened into the communication array. Sparks flew as delicate electronics shattered, severing their link to the outside world. As Billy subdued Reeves, a commotion at the camp's edge drew their attention. Marcus, Chen, and Thala stumbled into view, leading a group of humans and Ithorians. Their appearances were shocking. Marcus's skin glowed with a soft bioluminescence, while Thala's normally brown hide now shimmered with vibrant hues. "We need help," Marcus gasped, his enhanced muscles rippling with each labored breath. "Something's happening to us." Dr. Vasquez hurried to examine the newcomers, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying the advanced mutations. "The prolonged exposure has accelerated the changes exponentially." As Vasquez began collecting data from the affected group, Billy and Cora ventured deeper into the ruins, drawn by an inexplicable urge. They found themselves in a previously hidden chamber, uncovered by the recent tremors. At the center stood a massive device, its alien design unlike anything they had ever seen. Intricate patterns adorned its surface, pulsing with an inner light. "What is it?" Cora wondered aloud, her skin patterns shifting in response to her awe. Before Billy could respond, Lyra appeared beside them, moving with an otherworldly grace, her eyes, still glazed, fixed on the device. She reached out, her fingers barely brushing its surface. The chamber hummed to life. The device activated, sending waves of energy pulsing through the ground. Billy and Cora watched in amazement as holographic displays sprang up around them, showing Zephyria's surface rapidly transforming. "It's a terraforming engine," Billy realized, his enhanced mind quickly processing the information. Lyra's connected to it somehow. Outside, the landscape began to shift. Dormant seeds, awakened by the device's energy, sprouted into lush vegetation. The air grew richer, filled with the scent of alien flora. As the planet transformed around them, Billy and Cora felt the changes within their own bodies intensify. Their minds expanded, grasping concepts that would have been incomprehensible hours before. "I think I understand," Cora said, her voice filled with wonder. "The Zephyrians. They wanted to create a world where all three species could evolve together." A roar from outside interrupted their revelation. A creature, mutated by the rapid environmental changes, lumbered into view. Its massive form, covered in iridescent scales, bore little resemblance to the docile herbivores they had encountered earlier. As Billy and Cora prepared to face this new threat, the sky filled with the sound of engines. The military task force had arrived, their ships descending through Zephyria's transformed atmosphere. In orbit, Colonel Victor Hawk stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. The planet below bore little resemblance to the one described in their mission briefing. He keyed his comm, his voice tight with tension. "All units, hold position. Something's happened down there, and we need to reassess. On the surface, Billy, Cora, and Lyra stood at the heart of a world in flux, their bodies and minds evolving in ways they couldn't fully comprehend. As the military ships hovered uncertainly above and new dangers lurked in the transformed wilderness, they faced a future filled with both promise and peril. The fate of 3 species now rested in their hands, with the power of Zephyrian technology rewriting the rules of evolution itself. The military ships descended through Zephyria's transformed atmosphere, their engines straining against the unfamiliar air currents. Colonel Victor Hawk, his face grim with purpose, led the risky landing operation. As the ships touched down, the expedition team watched with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Billy and Cora, their bodies still adjusting to the rapid changes, approached the landing zone. Billy's enhanced muscles rippled beneath his tattered uniform, while Cora's skin shimmered with intricate pulsing patterns. They exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging the enormity of the situation they were about to explain. Colonel Hawk emerged from the lead ship, his eyes widening as he took in the altered landscape. Lush vegetation carpeted the ground where barren rock had been just days before. Strange, iridescent creatures darted through the undergrowth, their forms unlike anything in Earth's fossil record. "What in God's name happened here?" Hawk demanded, his voice tight with awe-inspiring shock. Billy stepped forward, his newly deepened voice resonating with authority. "Colonel, we've got a lot to bring you up to speed on. The situation has evolved beyond our initial reports." As Billy began his explanation, Hawk's team fanned out, establishing a perimeter around the landing site. One of the soldiers, Private Rodriguez, stumbled as he moved through a patch of Zephyrian spores. His face contorted in surprise as he felt an immediate surge of strength course through his body. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, his voice cracking with alarm, "something's happening to me?" Dr. Vasquez rushed over, her handheld scanner already whirring to life. "It's starting," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the readings. "The spores are affecting them too." Hawk, his face a mask of disbelief, turned back to Billy and Cora. "Explain. Now." Over the next hour, as the military team set up a temporary base, Billy and Cora briefed Hawk on the events that had transpired. They detailed Lyra's awakening, the activation of the terraforming engine, and the rapid changes affecting all life on Zephyria. Hawk listened intently, his own body beginning to feel the effects of the spores. His mind raced, processing information at an unprecedented speed. "This is beyond anything we were prepared for," he admitted, rubbing his temples. Dr. Vasquez approached, her face etched with concern. "Colonel, I've completed my initial analysis. The changes we're experiencing, they're irreversible, and they're accelerating." The color drained from Hawk's face as he absorbed the implications. "How long?" he asked. "Days," Vasquez replied. "Maybe less. We're looking at the birth of a new species, a hybrid of human, Ithorian, and Zephyrian DNA. Hawk's military training kicked in, overriding his personal shock. "We need to establish a quarantine immediately. No one leaves this planet until we understand exactly what we're dealing with." As Hawk began issuing orders to his team, a commotion erupted at the edge of the camp. Marcus, Chen, and Thala burst into view, their appearances even more drastically altered than before. Marcus's skin glowed with an eerie bioluminescence, while Thala's normally brown hide now shimmered with vibrant, shifting colors. "We've found something," Marcus gasped, his enhanced lungs allowing him to speak despite his obvious exertion. "A structure like nothing we've ever seen before." Thala nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the strange new light of Zephyria. It appeared as if from nowhere, rising from beneath the surface. "We believe it to be of Zephyrian origin." Before anyone could respond, Lyra emerged from the ruins where she had been communing with the terraforming engine. Her eyes, now clear and focused, locked onto the group. "The seed ship," she said, her voice carrying a weight of ancient knowledge. "Our ancestors prepared it for a journey that never began." As the implications of Lyra's words sank in, a shout rang out from the temporary holding area. Jason Reeves, his eyes wild with a manic energy, had broken free from his restraints. Before anyone could react, he bolted towards the direction Chen and Thala had come from. "Stop him!" Hawk bellowed, but Reeves moved with inhuman speed, enhanced by his prolonged exposure to Lyra's pheromones. Billy and Cora exchanged a quick glance before sprinting after Reeves. Their bodies, now more attuned to Zephyria's changing environment, allowed them to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease. As they pursued Reeves through the rapidly evolving landscape, Billy and Cora witnessed the planet's transformation firsthand. Trees sprouted and matured in minutes, their branches reaching towards the alien sky. New species of animals emerged from burrows and crevices, their forms adapting to the changing world around them. "This is incredible," Cora gasped as they ran, her skin patterns pulsing in rhythm with her elevated heartbeat. "It's like watching millions of years of evolution in real time." Billy nodded, his enhanced senses picking up the myriad sounds and smells of a world in flux. "We need to stop Reeves before he reaches that ship. Who knows what kind of damage he could do?" As they pressed on, the vegetation around them seemed to respond to their presence. Vines shifted, creating natural bridges over chasms that had opened in the changing landscape. Flowers bloomed, releasing spores that further accelerated their already enhanced abilities. In the distance, they could see the massive form of the Zephyrian ship rising above the newly formed canopy. Its alien architecture stood in stark contrast to the organic shapes of the evolving forest, a reminder of the advanced civilization that had once called this planet home. Reeves was just ahead now, his form barely visible as he darted between the rapidly growing trees. Billy and Cora pushed themselves harder, their muscles burning with exertion as they closed the gap. As they approached the base of the enormous ship, Reeves suddenly disappeared from view. Billy and Cora skidded to a halt at the entrance, a yawning opening in the ship's metallic skin. "He's inside," Billy panted, peering into the darkness beyond. Cora nodded, her skin patterns shifting to a deeper, more intense hue. "We have to go in after him. There's no telling what he might activate in there." As they stood at the threshold of the ancient vessel, the weight of their situation pressed down upon them. The fate of not just Zephyria, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. With one last shared look of tenacity, Billy and Cora stepped into the unknown depths of the Zephyrian ship, leaving behind a world in the throes of unprecedented transformation. Leaving behind a world in the throes of unprecedented transformation. As they crossed the threshold, the ship's interior came alive, responding to their presence with a soft, pulsing glow. The corridors stretched before them, a maze of biomechanical wonders that seemed to breathe and shift with each passing moment. Billy and Cora's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive, allowing them to process the flood of new information. "This way," Billy said, his eyes tracking nearly invisible traces of Reeves's passage. The ship's structure moved around them, walls sliding and reforming to guide their pursuit. Cora's skin patterns rippled with excitement and trepidation. "It's like the ship is alive," she whispered, her fingers brushing against a nearby surface. The material beneath her touch seemed to quiver in response. As they delved deeper into the vessel's core, the architecture grew more complex. Organic tendrils intertwined with crystalline structures, creating a tapestry of light and shadow that danced with each step they took. "Reeves's trail is getting stronger," Billy noted, his enhanced muscles coiled with tension. "We're getting close." Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Colonel Hawk barked orders to his increasingly bewildered team. The lush vegetation that had sprung up around them continued to evolve at an alarming rate, with new species of flora and fauna emerging and adapting before their eyes. "Establish a perimeter around that ship," Hawk commanded, his voice strained as he felt his own body changing. He flexed his fingers, watching in fascination as faint luminescent patterns began to form beneath his skin. Dr. Vasquez hustled from soldier to soldier, her scanner whirring constantly. "The rate of genetic mutation is accelerating," she reported, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific awe and personal concern. "We're all changing, Colonel, and I'm not sure we can stop it." A nearby private let out a startled yelp as a pair of iridescent butterfly-like creatures erupted from a newly formed cocoon on his arm. The insects took flight, their wings shimmering with colors that seemed to shift between visible spectrums. Inside the ship, Billy and Cora finally reached a vast central chamber. The space was dominated by a massive crystal structure that pulsed with energy, its facets reflecting and refracting light in hypnotic patterns. At its base stood Jason Reeves, his hands dancing over an intricate control interface. "Reeves!" Billy called out, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. "Step away from the controls." Reeves turned, and both Billy and Cora gasped at his appearance. The man before them had changed dramatically, his form now a striking blend of human and alien characteristics. His skin glowed with an inner light, and his eyes had transformed into multifaceted orbs that seemed to take in every detail of the chamber at once. "You don't understand," Reeves said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "This is our destiny, the next step in human evolution." As Billy and Cora cautiously approached, the ship's systems hummed to life around them. Holographic displays sprang into existence, showing the rapid changes taking place across Zephiria's surface. "I represent an organization dedicated to advancing human potential," Reeves continued, his fingers still working the alien controls. "This ship, this technology, it's the key to our ascension. We can reshape humanity across every world we've colonized." Cora's skin patterns flared with anger. "You can't make that decision for everyone." Before Reeves could respond, a new presence entered the chamber. Lyra glided in, her movements fluid and purposeful. The crystal structure reacted to her arrival, its pulsations intensifying. "The seed ship awakens," Lyra intoned, her voice carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. As she approached the center of the chamber, the crystal emitted a blinding pulse of energy. The wave expanded outward, engulfing the ship and racing across the planet's surface. On the ground, Colonel Hawk watched in awe as the energy wave washed over them. Soldiers cried out in shock as their bodies began to change more rapidly. Some developed bioluminescent patterns similar to the Ithorians, while others felt their muscles and bones densify. Dr. Vasquez's scanner went haywire, unable to keep up with the cascade of genetic changes. "It's not just us," she gasped, pointing to the surrounding landscape. New hybrid creatures were emerging from the evolving ecosystem, embodying traits from humans, Ithorians, and the ancient Zephirians. Hawk's military training warred with the incredible situation unfolding around him. With a heavy heart, he made a decision that would alter the course of their mission forever. "Initiate full quarantine protocols," he ordered, his voice steady despite the enormity of the command. "Destroy all spacecraft capable of atmospheric exit. As of now, we're grounded on Zephyria." Inside the seed ship's control chamber, Billy, Cora, and Reeves found themselves locked in a mental struggle for control. Their hybrid physiologies allowed them to interface directly with the ship's systems, each attempting to direct the course of the planet-wide transformation. The crystal structure pulsed erratically, responding to their competing commands. On the holographic displays, they could see the effects rippling across Zephyria, mountain ranges rising and falling, oceans reshaping themselves, and the sky filling with swirling, bioluminescent patterns. "Stop fighting it!" Reeves shouted, his face contorted with the effort of maintaining control. "This is the future of our species." Billy gritted his teeth, pushing back against Reeves's influence. "We can't let one person decide the fate of 3 entire species." Cora's skin blazed with patterns of drive as she added her will to Billy's. "There has to be a balance." As the energy levels in the chamber reached a critical point, Lyra stepped forward. Her connection to the ancient Zephirian technology allowed her to see the bigger picture, the ship's true purpose. With a gesture, Lyra initiated a stabilization sequence. The competing influences began to harmonize, and the ship's systems started to calibrate themselves, seeking an optimal balance between the 3 species' genetic contributions. "The seed ship does not seek to elevate one species above others," Lyra explained, her voice calm amidst the chaos. "It strives for harmony, a new whole, greater than the sum of its parts." As the stabilization took hold, the violent fluctuations in the terraforming process began to smooth out. Outside, the expedition team and stranded military forces watched in awe as Zephyria continued its transformation, but now with a sense of purpose and balance. New mountain ranges found their final forms, their peaks glowing with bioluminescent lichen. Oceans settled into new boundaries, teeming with hybrid life forms that defied easy classification. The sky above shimmered with an aurora-like display, a visual representation of the genetic merging taking place below. In the seed ship's control chamber, Billy, Cora, Reeves, and Lyra stood at the precipice of a new era. The future of Zephyria, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance, waiting to be shaped by their next actions. As the crystal structure's pulsations settled into a steady rhythm, Billy turned to the others, his enhanced mind racing with possibilities. "So what happens now?" he asked, voicing the question that weighed on all their minds. Lyra's eyes, filled with the knowledge of ages, swept across the chamber. "Now," she said, her voice carrying a hint of anticipation, "we guide the birth of a new world." "Species," Lyra continued, her eyes gleaming with ancient wisdom. "We must guide this transformation to its fullest potential." As if in response to her words, the crystal structure at the center of the chamber pulsed with renewed intensity. Billy, Cora, and Reeves found themselves drawn towards it, their hybrid physiologies resonating with the ship's energy. "What's happening?" Cora gasped, her skin patterns flickering rapidly. Before anyone could answer, tendrils of biomechanical energy snaked out from the crystal, enveloping the four beings. Billy felt a sudden jolt as his consciousness expanded, connecting to the ship's systems. He could sense Cora and Reeves beside him, their minds intertwining with his own. The chamber around them began to shift and pulsate, responding to their competing thoughts and desires. Holographic displays erupted into life, showing the accelerating changes across Zephyria's surface. "We're controlling it," Billy realized, his enhanced mind racing to process the influx of information. Reeves's face contorted with concentration. "This is our chance to shape humanity's future." As they grappled with their newfound connection to the ship, Lyra's voice cut through their mental struggle. "Beware," she warned, "your conflict threatens the balance." Outside, Colonel Hawks stared in awe at the chaos unfolding around him. The lush vegetation that had sprung up minutes ago was now evolving before his eyes. Trees twisted into new forms, their leaves shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Strange, hybrid creatures emerged from the undergrowth, bearing traits from multiple species. "Sir," a nearby soldier called out, his voice tinged with panic. "Something's happening to us." Hawk looked down at his hands, watching as faint, iridescent patterns began to form beneath his skin. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the new strength he felt coursing through his muscles. Dr. Vasquez rushed over, her scanner whirring frantically. "The rate of genetic mutation is off the charts, Colonel," she reported, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific fascination and personal concern. "We're all changing, and it's happening faster than I can track." A sudden commotion drew their attention. A group of soldiers were gathered around Private Chen, who was staring in shock at a pair of butterfly-like creatures that had just emerged from his forearm. The insects took flight, their wings shimmering with colors that seemed to shift between visible spectrums. "Doctor," Hawk said, his voice steady despite the surreal situation, "what's your assessment?" Vasquez's fingers flew over her datapad. "Based on the energy output from the ship and the rate of change we're seeing, I estimate we have only hours before these transformations become permanent. We could be witnessing the birth of an entirely new species." Hawk nodded, his military training kicking in despite the extraordinary circumstances. "Initiate full quarantine protocols," he ordered, "and find a way to contact the team inside that ship. We need to know what's happening in there." Back in the seed ship's control chamber, the mental link between Billy, Cora, Reeves, and Lyra intensified. Suddenly, they were plunged into a cascade of shared visions, flashes of Zephyrian history, glimpses of a society that had mastered the art of genetic manipulation and interspecies cooperation. Billy saw towering cities where humans, Ithorians, and Zephyrians lived in harmony, their unique strengths complementing each other. Cora experienced the thrill of exploration, witnessing hybrid beings venturing out to colonize new worlds. Reeves felt the weight of responsibility that came with such power, the careful balance required to guide evolution without destroying what made each species unique. As the vision swirled around them, Lyra's presence acted as an anchor. "This is the true purpose of the seed ship," she explained, her thoughts resonating in their minds. "To forge a new, unified species that combines the best of all three races. A species capable of thriving across diverse environments and reaching new heights of achievement." The competing influences began to synchronize as understanding dawned. Reeves, his mind open to the full scope of the Zephyrian plan, realized the short-sightedness of his original mission. I was wrong, he admitted, his mental voice tinged with awe and regret. Together they worked to guide the transformation, their shared vision flowing through Lyra and into the ship's advanced systems. The crystal structure pulsed with harmonious energy, fine-tuning the genetic recombination occurring across Zephyria. On the planet's surface, the rate of change began to stabilize. New mountain ranges found their final forms, their peaks glowing with bioluminescent lichen. Oceans settled into new boundaries, teeming with hybrid life forms that defied easy classification. The sky above shimmered with an aurora-like display, a visual representation of the genetic merging taking place below. Colonel Hawk and his team marveled at their evolving abilities. Soldiers discovered they could communicate empathically over short distances, while others found their senses sharpened beyond human norms. Dr. Vasquez, her own body changing, worked tirelessly to document the transformations. As the hours passed, the seed ship's energy output began to diminish. Inside the control chamber, the biomechanical interfaces connecting Billy, Cora, Reeves, and Lyra started to disengage. They found themselves standing once again on the chamber floor, forever changed by their shared experience. The central crystal's glow faded to a gentle pulse, and a low hum filled the air as the ship's systems powered down. Billy looked at his companions, seeing in their transformed bodies the perfect blend of human, Ithorian, and Zephyrian traits. A grinding sound echoed through the chamber as the ship's main entrance began to open. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the path before them. Billy took a deep breath, savoring the mix of familiar and alien scents that wafted in from the transformed landscape of Zephyria. "Are we ready for this?" Cora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Reeves nodded, a look of grit on his face. "We have to be. We're responsible for guiding what comes next." Lyra stepped forward, her movements fluid and purposeful. "The real work begins now. We must help our people understand and adapt to their new reality." Together, the four of them moved towards the entrance, prepared to face the new world they had helped create. As they stepped out onto Zephyria's surface, they saw Colonel Hawk and his team approaching, their bodies showing signs of the hybrid transformation. The two groups stood face to face, representatives of the old world and the new, ready to navigate the uncharted territory that lay before them. The future of Zephyria, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance, waiting to be shaped by their next actions. Actions. The future of Zephyria, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance, waiting to be shaped by their next steps. As Billy, Cora, Reeves, and Lyra emerged from the seed ship, the gathered expedition members and military personnel gasped in awe. The four beings radiated an otherworldly beauty, their skins shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in harmony with the transformed landscape around them. Muscles rippled with enhanced strength beneath their iridescent skin, and their eyes glowed with heightened perception and intelligence. Colonel Hawk approached, his own body displaying signs of the ongoing transformation. Faint, shimmering patterns had begun to form beneath his skin, and his movements possessed a newfound grace and fluidity. "Welcome back," Hawk said, his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. "We've got a situation on our hands." Dr. Vasquez joined them, her scanner whirring as she analyzed the group's hybrid physiology. "The entire planet is in flux," she reported, her own form showing subtle changes. "New hybrid species are emerging and adapting at a rapid pace. We're documenting everything we can, but it's overwhelming our systems." Billy nodded, his enhanced mind processing the information at lightning speed. "We need to establish a base of operations," he said, turning to Cora. "Something that can accommodate our evolving needs." Cora's skin flickered with patterns of agreement. "We can use the seed ship systems to create a sustainable living environment," she suggested. "It's designed to interface with the planet's ecosystems." Reeves stepped forward, his face set with willpower. "I'll lead a team to explore the transformed landscape," he offered. "We need to map the changes and identify potential resources and threats." Lyra's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom as she surveyed the gathered crowd. "I will teach our people how to harness their new abilities," she said. "There is much to learn about our hybrid nature." As the day progressed, the newly formed hybrid society faced unexpected challenges. Many experienced intense physical attractions to one another, regardless of their original species. The air seemed charged with pheromones, creating a heady mixture of desire and confusion. Billy and Cora found themselves working closely together on the settlement plans, their bodies humming with a powerful resonance. As they interfaced with the seed ship's systems, their minds merged in a dizzying dance of shared consciousness. "We need to focus," Billy said, his voice strained as he tried to ignore the electric current flowing between them. Cora nodded, her skin pulsing with awe-inspiring energy. "The settlement comes first," she agreed, though her eyes lingered on Billy's transformed form. Meanwhile, Reeves led his exploration team into the lush Zephyrian jungle. The vegetation had evolved into bizarre new forms, with bioluminescent vines and crystalline flowers that seemed to sing with alien harmonies. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoed through the trees. A massive predator burst from the undergrowth, its form a nightmarish blend of the three species' most dangerous traits. Razor-sharp claws extended from paw-like appendages, while a cluster of sensory organs pulsed atop its elongated head. "Scatter!" Reeves shouted, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge the creature's initial lunge. His team responded instantly, their newfound abilities giving them a fighting chance against the hybrid monstrosity. As night fell, the bioluminescent patterns on the hybrid being's skin began to pulse in unison, creating a mesmerizing light show across the fledgling settlement. Dr. Vasquez observed the phenomenon with growing concern. "This could be a form of subconscious, species-wide communication," she theorized, her own skin flickering in response to the others. "We need to understand it before it overwhelms our individuality." The night brought new challenges as the hybrid population discovered their heightened nocturnal abilities. Enhanced night vision and increased energy levels made sleep impossible for many, leading to a flurry of activity as people explored their new capabilities. Unable to resist their growing attraction any longer, Billy and Cora found a moment of privacy amidst the chaos. Their intimate encounter was intense and transformative, their hybrid physiologies perfectly in tune with each other. As they came together, they experienced a deep mental and emotional connection that provided new insights into the potential of their hybrid species. As dawn broke, the settlement buzzed with activity. The hybrid population, energized by their night of exploration and bonding, eagerly began building their new society. Billy and Cora, their connection deepened by their encounter, took the lead in organizing work groups and establishing the foundations of their hybrid civilization. However, as construction began, a new complication arose. The rapidly evolving Zephyrian flora reacted to the activities of the hybrid beings, growing and shifting at an alarming rate. Strange symbiotic plants enveloped newly erected structures, both supporting and threatening the construction. "We can't fight it," Billy realized, watching as a crystalline tree merged with a half-built dwelling. "We need to work with it, integrate it into our designs." Cora nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "It's our first real test," she said. "Can we truly harmonize with this new environment?" As the hybrid society faced this pivotal challenge, the future of Zephyria hung in the balance. The success of their adaptation would determine not only their own fate, but potentially reshape interspecies relations across the galaxy. The transformed inhabitants of Zephyria steeled themselves for the trials ahead, ready to forge a new path in their ever-evolving world. The transformed inhabitants of Zephyria steeled themselves for the trials ahead, ready to forge a new path in their ever-evolving existence. As the fledgling hybrid society began to take shape, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. Billy noticed it first, his enhanced senses picking up subtle changes in the air. He turned to Cora, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern. "Do you feel that?" he asked, gesturing towards the distant sky. Cora nodded, her own skin flickering in response. "The atmosphere's shifting. Something big is coming." They watched as massive storm clouds gathered in the distance, unlike anything they had ever seen on Zephyria. Bolts of multicolored lightning danced between the swirling masses, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. Billy called for an emergency meeting of the settlement's leaders. As they gathered, Dr. Vasquez arrived with her latest readings. "This storm system is unprecedented," she explained, her eyes wide with a mix of scientific curiosity and apprehension. "The electrical activity is off the charts, and there are gravitational anomalies I can't even begin to explain." Reeves, freshly returned from his latest expedition, added his observations. "The landscape is changing faster than ever. We uncovered something out there, an ancient structure. It might be related to weather control." Billy absorbed the information, his hybrid mind processing the implications at lightning speed. "We need to prepare," he announced. "Cora, work with the construction teams to reinforce our shelters. Reeves, I want you to lead a team to investigate that structure. Dr. Vasquez, set up monitoring stations around the perimeter. We need to understand how this storm is affecting us." As the group dispersed to their tasks, Billy couldn't help but notice the way the approaching storm seemed to resonate with his changed physiology. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin danced in sync with the distant lightning, creating a mesmerizing display. Cora experienced similar sensations as she directed the construction efforts. The symbiotic plant life that had integrated with their buildings began to react to the changing atmosphere, growing and shifting at an accelerated rate. "Work with it," Cora called out to her team as vines and crystalline growths enveloped a half-finished structure. "Let it guide our designs." The hybrid beings adapted quickly, their enhanced strength and agility allowing them to keep pace with the rapidly evolving flora. As they worked, Cora noticed an increase in intimate encounters among the population. The charged atmosphere seemed to intensify their already heightened attractions, leading to spontaneous moments of connection amidst the preparations. Meanwhile, Reeves led his team towards the uncovered Zephyrian structure. As they navigated the transformed landscape, they encountered new challenges. The air grew thick with electrical charge, causing their skin to tingle and their hair to stand on end. Suddenly, a creature unlike anything they had seen before emerged from a stand of glowing vegetation. It moved with fluid grace, its body a seamless blend of plant and animal characteristics. Tendrils of bioluminescent energy crackled around it as it regarded the hybrid team with apparent curiosity. "Hold your positions," Reeves ordered, his voice low and steady. "Let's see what it does." The creature tilted its head, seeming to sense the electrical currents flowing through the hybrid beings. After a tense moment, it retreated into the undergrowth, leaving the team to continue their journey with a newfound sense of wonder and caution. Back at the settlement, Dr. Vasquez worked feverishly to interpret the data flowing in from her monitoring stations. The storm's approach was having a profound effect on the hybrid population. Individuals reported increased empathic abilities, with waves of shared emotions sweeping through the community. Lyra, recognizing the need for stability, began organizing group meditation sessions. "Focus on your breath," she instructed a gathering of overwhelmed hybrids. "Visualize a barrier around your mind. We must learn to channel these new sensations." As the storm finally reached the settlement, its full fury was unleashed. The sky erupted in a dazzling display of electrical energy, while gravitational fluctuations caused objects and beings to momentarily float. The hybrid population reacted in surprising ways, with some individuals developing the ability to manipulate small electrical fields, while others found they could temporarily alter their personal gravitational pull. In the heart of the tempest, Billy and Cora found themselves drawn together with an intensity that took their breath away. As they embraced, their hybrid physiologies resonated with the storm's energy, creating a connection that transcended the physical. Their union sparked a chain reaction throughout the population. For a brief, extraordinary moment, the entire hybrid community was linked in a collective consciousness. Visions of potential futures flashed through their shared mind. Glimpses of a society that could thrive not just on Zephyria, but across the stars. As the storm began to subside, the inhabitants of the settlement emerged from their shelters, forever changed by the experience. The landscape had been reshaped, now a perfect fusion of the evolved plant life and their hybrid technology. Billy gathered the community, his skin still pulsing with residual energy from the storm. "We've faced our first great test," he announced, "and we've emerged stronger, but our journey is just getting started." Just then, a low hum filled the air. Dr. Vasquez rushed forward, her scanner beeping urgently. "I'm detecting a signal," she reported, her voice tight with excitement and apprehension. It's coming from deep space. The hybrid beings looked to the sky, a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty in their altered eyes. As the faint signal continued to pulse, they realized that their transformation had not gone unnoticed by the wider galaxy. The true test of their new society was about to begin. The signal's pulsing rhythm echoed through the settlement, a tantalizing mystery that demanded investigation. Billy turned to Dr. Vasquez, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. Can you pinpoint the origin? The scientist's fingers danced across her scanner, her brow furrowed in concentration. After a moment, her eyes widened in astonishment. It's coming from the coordinates of the long-lost Ithorian colony, the one mentioned in the ancient archives. A ripple of excitement passed through the gathered hybrids, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in unison. Cora stepped forward, her voice filled with tenacity. We need to investigate. This could be the key to understanding our transformation and our place in the galaxy. Billy nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. Agreed. We'll need a team and a way to get there. He turned to Colonel Hawk, who stood nearby, his hybrid form a testament to his own transformation. Colonel, is there any chance we could get one of the military shuttles operational? Hawk considered for a moment, then nodded. We've been working on repairs. One of them should be space-worthy. I'll have my team prep it immediately. As preparations for the expedition began, the settlement buzzed with activity. Billy and Cora worked closely with Dr. Vasquez to gather all available data on the signal and the lost colony. Meanwhile, Reeves and Lyra continued their investigation of the ancient Zephyrian technology, hoping to uncover any information that might aid the mission. Within days, a small team was assembled, and the repaired shuttle stood ready on the makeshift landing pad. Billy and Cora would lead the expedition, accompanied by Dr. Vasquez and a small crew of their most capable hybrids. As they prepared to board, Reeves approached with news. We've made a breakthrough, he said, his eyes alight with excitement. There's a network of dormant terraforming engines buried across the planet. We think they might be the key to stabilizing our ecosystem. Billy clasped Reeves's shoulder. That's incredible news. Work on activating them while we're gone. We may need them when we return. With final farewells exchanged, the shuttle lifted off, its engines humming with power as it broke through Zephiria's atmosphere. As the planet receded behind them, the team felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. They were venturing into the unknown, seeking answers to questions they had only just begun to ask. The journey to the source of the signal took several days. As they approached their destination, a world came into view, a vibrant, blue-green sphere that pulsed with life. It's beautiful, Cora breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the sight. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, they were greeted by a burst of communication. A voice, melodious and otherworldly, filled the shuttle's speakers. Welcome, travelers from Zephyria. We've been expecting you. Billy and Cora exchanged glances, their surprise evident. How did these beings know who they were and where they came from? The shuttle was guided to a landing pad nestled within a sprawling city that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment. As they disembarked, they were met by a group of beings unlike any they had ever seen. The inhabitants of this world, which they learned was called Haven, were clearly descendants of the original Ithorian colonists. However, generations of interbreeding with an extinct alien species had created a hybrid race that rivaled their own transformation in its complexity and beauty. A tall, elegant figure stepped forward, introducing herself as Zara, one of Haven's leaders. We've been monitoring your transformation on Zephyria, she explained, her voice carrying the same melodious quality they had heard over the communication system. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. As Zara led them through the city, Billy and Cora were awestruck by the level of biotechnological advancement on display. Living buildings pulsed with energy, and vehicles that seemed more organic than mechanical glided silently through the air. Our ancestors attempted a similar hybridization process millennia ago, Zara explained as they entered a vast structure that seemed to be part building, part enormous plant. But it took generations to stabilize. We've been refining our technology and knowledge ever since, hoping to one day share it with others who might follow our path. Dr. Vasquez could barely contain her excitement as she took in the medical facilities. The Havanites' understanding of hybrid biology far surpassed their own, offering solutions to challenges they had yet to even fully comprehend. As they delved deeper into discussions with the Haven scientists, Billy and Cora began to realize the full implications of this encounter. The knowledge and technology the Havanites offered could be the key to fully integrating their new hybrid nature and stabilizing their society back on Zephyria. "We would be honored to share our knowledge with you," Zara said, her eyes shimmering with an inner light. "And in return, we hope to learn from your experiences. Your transformation has occurred at a pace we never thought possible." As the Zephyrian team prepared to return home with a delegation of Havanites, Billy and Cora stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. "It's almost too good to be true," Cora said softly, leaning into Billy's embrace. "To think, all this time, there were others out there who had gone through what we're experiencing." Billy nodded, his mind already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice filled with quiet awe. "We're about to enter a new chapter in our evolution, not just as a hybrid species, but as part of a larger galactic community." As they watched the stars emerge in the alien sky, Billy and Cora knew that their return to Zephyria would mark the start of a new era. With the knowledge and assistance of the Haven colonists, they would face the challenges ahead with renewed hope and perseverance. The shuttle, now accompanied by several Havanite ships, lifted off from the surface of Haven. As they set course for Zephyria, the team couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. They were bringing back more than just knowledge and technology. They were carrying the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.